ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track. And ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
I am always in a good mood whenever I have the opportunity to spend time with Fred Rubino. He is quick-witted. He is very intelligent. He doesn't take himself too seriously. And even though some of you would say you'd never know this, he's actually quite intelligent. And if people are listening to us for the first time and are unfamiliar with Fred Rubino, somebody recommended that I have Fred on maybe about a year or so ago. I said, all right, we'll have him on once. He'll probably be mediocre. And then we could say we did it. I have been blown away by Fred Rubino's appearances on this program. And I'd say about 70% of you agree with me. But, I mean, obviously, there's a very vocal 30%, and that's why Fred's not on every day. But for the 70% that do like Fred Rubino, you are in luck, because stand-up comic extraordinaire, the great Fred Rubino, is in the building. Hello, Fred.
Thank you for the 70%.
Yeah. Hey, well, I mean, that's an honest answer.
I would have took 50. 50 would have been fine.
I think that, Fred, that's not bad. So I don't even think there's 70% of this audience that likes me.
Well, let's not get crazy, but, it's my SATs weren't even 70%. So I'm doing well here.
Do you remember what your SAT score was?
No.
No?
I have no idea.
You took the SAT score, though?
Yes. Yeah. Several times.
All right. What's new, Fred? I understand you're shipping off to Shipsburg. Is that accurate?
Shipsburg or Shippensburg. It's the Parks Casino in Shippensburg, Pennsylvania tonight.
Oh, but that's Philadelphia, isn't it?
No, it's way past Lancaster.
I thought Parks was in Philadelphia.
There's two. There's one.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so when I got booked, I was like, yeah, we'll go for a 45-minute drive. And he goes, I think it's longer. And then I found out, but I'm happy to do it. And then after that, it's Long Island and Staten Island shows. So come on out and see Fred Rubino live.
If people want to catch you up with one of your appearances, they can go to fredrubino.com, right?
Yes, they can. Or tune in to Watch a Predator. I'm sometimes on that.
How's things going with you at home, with your family life?
Very well, surprisingly,
That's great. That's wonderful. Yeah. Now, you are a part-time Florida resident, right?
Yes, I still am.
Now that it's getting cold, shouldn't this be when you fly south for the winter?
I would love to, but my wife wants to experience the winter, the Christmas season.
I see.
In New York.
I like that. That's nice.
Why?
Because
she grew up on New Utrecht Avenue. You know what Christmas is up north. It's not like you never knew. And that's why we moved to Florida.
All right. We're also going to be checking in a little later this hour with Elliot Gordon. He's got some interesting things to say. He's got some interesting clips to share, and Fred Rubino will help us analyze them. We have some interesting stories in the news that Fred's going to help us analyze as well. But there were a couple of people that were calling in with questions. These are questions that are too difficult for me to tackle, so we're going to see how Fred does in helping me tackle these questions. Let us go to the illustrious Steve in Manhattan. Hello, Steve. All right, clearly too tough for Steve as well. Let us then go to Lana Lee in Minnesota, calling from WCCO in Minneapolis. Hello, Lana Lee.
Good morning.
Morning.
I was wondering, do you remember what historic event happened on this date 61 years ago, and what do you think the effect was on society?
Well, are you talking about the JFK assassination?
Yes.
Yeah, I have spent a lot of time talking about this. In fact, last year, because it was the 60th anniversary, we actually did a whole hour-long debate, which I thought was pretty interesting, analyzing whether or not it was a conspiracy or not. I mean, look, I'm open-minded on this. I do think that it's likely that there was a conspiracy, but as to your broader question about what the effect has been on the public, I think that assassination brought about a new level of cynicism, mistrust, and darkness on the part of the American people when it came to thinking about the government. I think before that, everyone knew there were a lot of crooked politicians, that there were a lot of crooked people. I think after that moment, people came to view nothing as sacred and everything as corruptible. And I don't know that we've ever recovered from that. That's my take. You want to you want to add your 2 cents, Fred?
Well, sinister, darkness, and mistrust were actually in my marriage vows. So I think it at least it affected me.
Rick is in Elmwood Park. Hello, Rick.
Thanks for taking my call, Frank. I know you don't love this subject, but you jokingly said to me the other morning, people who believe in climate change are dogs, mimicking me, basically saying that I would say that. But I would never say that, and the question is, why would I never say that people believe in climate change are dogs, or even say that they're wrong?
I give up.
Okay, because people who believe in climate change are basically correct. The climate does change, and the climate is changing, but technically that's not the hypothesis that the government is pushing. What they're pushing is called CO2-caused catastrophic anthropogenic global warming. And in that hypothesis are 2 assumptions. One is that the planet is historically hot right now, and it's getting dangerously hot. And the other one is that CO2 controls the temperature of the Earth.
All right. Well, I'm glad that we got that out of the way. You want to add anything to that, Fred? There was way too much science for this early in the morning for me.
Well, I could have told you that the weather changes. It always changes.
Exactly.
Every day it changes. But as far as man causing it, that's still up in the air, right? But you called him a dog?
I don't think I did.
Not a cat.
I must have.
Not a cat.
I don't remember.
So dogs are low on the chain.
Yeah, I like dogs.
Yeah,
I like dogs.
You should have called him a squirrel. He wouldn't know what to say.
All right. There's a lot of stories in the news that I want to get your take on. For instance, a hiker stepped into a 280 million year old fossilized world in the Italian Alps. This is really interesting. And this stunning fossilized world contained remnants of amphibians, skin prints, plants, seeds were discovered in the melting glacier ice of the Italian Alps. Experts date the now exposed lost world to about 280 million years ago. The site was found by a hiker over 5,500 feet above sea level. This is a big deal.
Yes, it is. Italian Alps, too. Not the French Alps. They knew it was the Italian Alps because the cave had a basement. And that's where the grandmother lived. And the big stone chairs had plastic covering over them. So even millions of years ago, Italians lived the same kind of life. I think that's what they're proving.
The more things change, the more they stay the same.
That's right. Definitely.
Exactly. All right. There was an 80-year-old sole resident of a remote island who was gifted a donkey as a companion 10 years after her husband's death. Irene Rubino lived alone on the tiny Greek island of Kinaros since 2013. Known as, as Mrs. Rubino, she was an 80-year-old woman who was the sole resident of a remote Greek island, and now she's going to be living with a donkey. Big deal.
I tell you what, listen, the ancient Greeks have had a reputation of being like very erotic. And this woman validates everything we think about the Greeks. She hasn't had sex in 10 to 15 years. Okay. She don't want a man. She don't want a boyfriend. She wants a mule. She has just validated every erotic story I ever heard about the Greeks. I don't want a boyfriend. Send me a mule and send me it now.
So you think there could be something lascivious going on with the donkey or the mule?
I think if you're asking for a mule or a donkey, you got some problems.
All right.
And how about the mailman? How many mailmen have to drown before you move to the mainland?
This was interesting. I actually saw the photo of this, and I was, it did exactly what it was supposed to do. I clicked on it because I was curious because it's a clickbait story. The world's tallest woman met the world's shortest woman. So they have united, and the BBC shared this video of 27-year-old Rumija Gelji and 30-year-old Jyoti MG meeting for the first time for the 20th annual Guinness World Records Day. Gelji is an advocate and a researcher from Turkey. She is exactly 7 feet 7 inches tall, while MG, an actress from India, is 2 feet 7 inches tall. Tallest woman and shortest woman ever having a meeting. How do you think this went, Fred?
I think you're really rubbing it into the short woman. She doesn't feel bad enough being around normal sized people. Oh, you don't feel bad? Let's bring in the tallest woman in the world and see how you feel now.
Well, why do you say
that's spiking the ball?
Why do you say that it's rubbing it in to the short woman? Why is it not rubbing it into the tall woman?
I got to tell you, I think the tall woman has more issues with her size than the small one. Because if you look at the picture, the woman who's tall is wearing heels. 7'7" is not
true.
enough for her. If I could only be 2 inches tall, I'd be so much sexier. She has issues.
How's your height?
My height's been fine. It's been very regular. It's regular lately. Except, I'm 5'6.5".
I think that's about what I am. I think I might be 5'7", but
I
I'm right around.
Fluctuate though.
Yeah. So it depends on what you're eating, I guess, right?
Yeah, and if I'm hunched over,
Yes,
if I've been drinking a lot, I'm like 4'5".
My first or second grade teacher told me that if you slept on the floor, it would expand your spinal column and it would make you taller. Is that true?
I don't know, but I have slept on the floor many times, but that was because of bourbon. It had nothing to do with my height.
Did you find yourself taller afterwards?
I found myself wet in the morning and not too much taller.
All right. Somebody that also probably has a lot of regrets is Jussie Smollett. Jussie Smollett's conviction in a 2019 attack on himself has been overturned. This was actually on my list of denunciations for today, but we'll chat about it with you, see if you have anything interesting to add. The Illinois Supreme Court yesterday overturned actor Jussie Smollett's conviction on charges of staging a racist and homophobic attack against himself in 2019 and lying to Chicago police, saying he should not have been charged a second time after reaching a deal with prosecutors. What say you, Fred?
Well, his crime, he said that two MAGA guys beat him up, threw bleach on him, which who goes walking around with bleach?
Right.
And then started yelling, it's MAGA country, which downtown Chicago is not MAGA country. But what I found very interesting is when it happened, the detectives were saying, we are afraid of copycat crimes now. Of what? And what? I can't even imagine. What, you're going to have like a big Arab guy get up and say, 2 Jewish Hasidic Jews beat me up. They threw chicken soup on me and they were yelling, this is wholesale country. What copycat crime? It didn't happen.
So the idea is that law enforcement's afraid of people copycatting by staging their own crimes against political adversaries.
And by the way, he did a homophobic crime against himself. How do you do that?
That's a fair question. Is there any way that his career comes back after this?
Oh, sure. Liberals love each other. He's still sticking to the story, by the way, even though the 2 guys who did it said, no, he paid us to rough him up. He gave an interview yesterday saying, I stick to my story and we will find those people.
I think that's going to go as well as OJ's hunt for the real killers.
Well, OJ almost found them. They had to be golfers because he golfed a lot looking for them. So maybe Jesse finds them at a Subway sandwich shop.
All right. Hold that thought. Fred Rubino is here. We're going to chat with Elliot Gordon in just a minute. We'll try and take some of your calls as well. 1-646-720-0635. That's 646-720-0635. This is The Other Side of Midnight. Straight ahead.
The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
Morning decisions. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? A sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel? Or that white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Start your day with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
Clorox Sentiva smells like lavender. Cleans like Clorox. And feels like...
All right, that could go on for a while. Experience the long-lasting freshness of Clorox Sentiva. Available in Clorox Sentiva Lavender Scented Bleach. Use as directed.
Home means something different to everyone. But with Rocket Mortgage, home can mean even more. It can mean a college education, taming your high-interest debt, even a renovation. We've made it easier than ever to use your home equity. That home you worked so hard for, now it can work hard for you. Call 800-4ROCKET or visit rocket.com to find out more.
Rocket Mortgage, LLC. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSConsumerAccess.org, number 3030.
Experience a progressive lens engineered with AI from Essilor. Powered by individual measurements of your visual behavior. A lens personalized to you by an Essilor expert. Discover Verilux XR Track and enjoy instantly sharp vision in motion and seamless transitions from near to far. Find your local Essilor expert today at Essilor.com.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
Step inside, walk this way, you and me, babe. Hey, hey! Love is like a bomb, baby, come and get it on. Living like a lover with a red iPhone. Looking like a tramp, like a video bam. Demolition woman, can I be your man?
This is The Other Side of Midnight, 23 minutes after the hour. This is Def Leppard, Pour Some Sugar on Me, a birthday bumper music selection from Rich Palorino, who is a skilled auditor and a nice guy. All right, 646-720-0635. We're going to chat with Elliot Gordon in a moment. Fred Rubino is here. Fred, what do you have to say for yourself?
Just don't call me a squirrel, all right? Like you call that other guy a dog.
I don't remember saying that, and it doesn't sound like the kind of thing that I say about people. I neglected to mention, you are wearing a very stylish Other Side of Midnight t-shirt, which I absolutely love.
It makes me look smarter.
I would agree.
I mean, the only way I could look smart, maybe I'll wear a yarmulke. And that's about it. I'll look really smart.
So I'm going to check in with Elliot Gordon and find out if that joke was offensive. I think it probably
someone
was.
Smart?
Well, that's where we have to check it out. So let's bring in Elliot Gordon. Elliot Gordon is a wonderful guy. He is a storyteller, an entrepreneur, a talent agent, a producer, a former aide to Mayor Giuliani, and a resident expert on when comedy becomes offensive and when it becomes unfunny. Hello there, Elliot.
Frank, Fred, I love being here with you guys on the other side of midnight. I'm ready to rock and roll.
Outstanding. We are too. All right. You've spoken a lot about Sid Bernstein in our previous conversations, Elliot. What's the big deal with Sid Bernstein? If people are hearing our conversation for the first time, we have a lot of new listeners, a lot of new radio stations around the country carrying this show. Why should we still care about Sid Bernstein?
Because Sid Bernstein is the greatest story never told. And now I'm looking at the other day, I saw that the great director now actually has produced a documentary called 1964, which is going to air next week and stream on a major broadcaster about, once again, 1964 and the Beatles coming to America. And Frank, it seemed like those guys have transcended generations. They won't go away. They're still with us. They go from generation to generation. And everybody usually gets the story wrong. They say, well, they came here for the Ed Sullivan Show. They didn't come here for the Ed Sullivan Show. There was a wonderful man who was my friend, my mentor, my partner, and this is a guy who was down on his luck in 1962 because he went broke promoting shows in New Jersey, which was called the Jazz Festival out there. And he said, I took a course at the New School, and I took a job at General Artists Corporations just to make a living because I went broke. I lost all my money promoting those shows. They were not good shows. And he said, I took a course at the New School about foreign governments. And I took England, Great Britain, because I knew I could pick up the newspapers and the magazines. They'd be written in English to do my homework. He said, I walk in, there's a Times Square, there's a newsstand there called Hodling's Newsstand, which now is a store that would get the out-of-town newspapers. So I picked up a couple of British newspapers in 1962 to do my homework assignment. And as an agent, I automatically turned to the entertainment section. It's second nature for me. And I saw one line with an asterisk, and it said, music note, 4 lads from Liverpool causing a stir. And that was it. And then he said a few days later, I see there's a paragraph about these guys. And then there's a photo the next week, and I didn't realize it at the time, but Sid said through the newspapers, he was witnessing the birth of the Beatles.
Wow.
And he just happened to be caught with the story. And he said he's picking up these out-of-town newspapers. He's watching the story develop. There's a picture. There's crowds around the Cavern nightclub where they're working. And he said, I'm a promoter, and I understand that photographers follow crowds. If there's a lot of people somewhere, the photographers will be there, the reporters will be there. It's all based on crowds. And he said, I'm watching this thing grow, and I'm saying to myself, there's something going on out there. So I said, well, Sid, what did you do? He said, I went to my boss at the agency, General Artists Corporation. He was a man named Buddy Howe, #1 agent, top agent, ran the agency. And I said, Buddy, there are crowds lining up in Liverpool for a band out there. I'm watching in the newspapers. I think we should take a look at it. I said, Sid, what did Buddy said? He said, well, Buddy said, we've got an office in London. We'll send one of our agents up to Liverpool, which is a long trip. It's like a 4-hour car ride. And he said, we'll check it out. I said, well, what happened then? He said, well, about 2 weeks later, Buddy comes into my office and he hands me a memo that was sent to him by the agent at their office in London who went to see them in Liverpool. I said, Sid, what the memo said? He said, good band, but not right for American audiences. And he said, Buddy told me, Sid, we're going to pass on these guys.
Wow.
And Sid said, he said, I'm a promoter. I'm looking at crowds. I earn a living selling tickets to people. These kids are lining up to see this band. That means they're good. And if there are kids in England that think they're good, there'll be kids in New York that think they're good. Buddy is wrong. I know what I'm looking at. I don't have to hear the music. I see the lines. I said, well, Sid, what'd you do? He said, well, L, there was a rule at General Artists Corporation that their agents were not permitted to promote shows. It was the rule at the company. So I had to work kind of like under the radar because I figured, hey, Buddy's wrong. I'm a promoter. I'll break loose and I'll try to find a way to grab these guys and bring them to New York by myself. He said, but there was no Google. You couldn't Google Beatle manager and find the name Brian Epstein. He said, I had no idea how to contact their manager, who their manager was, where he was. I said, Sid, how'd you resolve that? He said, El, there used to be a restaurant chain called Stouffer's. I'm at the counter, drowning my troubles in chocolate chip ice cream, trying to figure my way out of this dilemma. And there was a man who walked in, an agent named Bud Seligwell. We were friends. I said, Bud, what's going on? He said, well, Sid, I'm doing okay. He said, I just got back from England. What's up with you? And he said, I told Bud, he said, Bud, I'm hot on a British band. They call themselves the Beatles. And I have no idea how to connect with their management, who he is, or how to reach him. But I got a great feeling about these guys based on what I'm looking at in the newspapers about the lines of kids lining up to see their shows in Liverpool, England. And he said, Bud Seligwell tells me, he said, Sid, he said, I just got back from London. The man's name is Brian Epstein. He hired me to go to the local radio stations to push their record because EMI, which owns Capitol Records, they're the parent company in London, they've got a record deal with them. And Brian had me pushing the disc jockeys to get airplay for his boys, the Beatles. He said, but Sid, you're building this up in your mind. It's a very local thing. They've got a local following in Liverpool. They got a record out. Their manager, Brian, is a one-man show. He does it all. He manages them. He books them. He does press for them. Way too small for you to get excited about. And Sid tells me, he said, I told Bud, I said, Bud, I know what I'm looking at in the papers. I feel it in my bones. I got a feeling about this band. Please give me Brian's number. And he does. Circle Childwall 8 or whatever it was. Sid remembered that number for the rest of his life.
I bet he did. I bet he did. At 33 minutes after the hour, you're listening to The Other Side of Midnight. We're talking with the one and only Elliot Gordon. If you're just tuning in, there's going to be a documentary about the Beatles coming to America, and we're getting a little bit of a behind the scenes from Elliot Gordon, who's giving us a little bit of the stories behind the stories of how Sid Bernstein brought the Beatles to America. Please continue, Elliot.
So now Sid says, he said, I called the number in England. Brian at the time was about 28, 29 years old. He was living with his mother in London, and they had a store in Liverpool, which is why he split his time between Liverpool and London. So he said, I call him at his mother's home, and I get his mother on the phone, Queenie Epstein, and she said, Mr. Bernstein, where are you calling from? And he said, I'm calling from New York. I'd like to speak to your son. And she starts telling him, Mr. Bernstein, you know, my favorite thing to read every week is the book review in the Sunday New York Times. And they always promise me at these different stores here in England, they'll save me a copy, and they never do. And Sid tells me, he said, I promised Brian's mother that I will send it to you, airmail, every week from New York. And Sid did that for the next 30 years. And he said, please put your son on the phone. She says, I'll get Brian. He said, Brian gets on the phone and he says, Mr. Bernstein, what's wrong with you people in America? My boys are booked into the biggest concert halls in England. We got bookings set up for Germany and France. Nobody in America will return my calls. The agencies won't get back to me. The promoters won't speak with me. And Capitol Records, which is a subsidiary of EMI, won't release their records because they don't feel they're worth the investment. You guys are wrong. What's your problem? And Sid said, I told Brian, I've been reading about your boys in the newspapers, and Brian never called them the Beatles. It was always my boys. He said, I've been reading about your boys in the newspapers. I agree with what you said, and I would like you to allow me to be the first promoter to bring your boys to the United States. And he said, well, Sid, where would you present them? And Sid told me, he said, El, I didn't even think about that. I forgot, where am I going to present them? And he said, I just threw out Carnegie Hall. Would you let me present them in Carnegie Hall here in New York? And he said, that sealed the deal. Brian loved it. He said, that's class, that's elegant. When my boys come to America, they go into Carnegie Hall. And Sid said, well, I'd like to do this in about 3 months. Let's wrap up the deal. He said, how much are you getting? And he told them, he said, well, we're getting the equivalent of pounds to dollars, what would be $2,000 a night in dollars for a show. And Sid said, Al, I just threw it from the gut. And Sid had no money at the time. He said, Brian, I'd like to take 2 shows in one day for $6,500, so you get a significant amount more to cross the Atlantic Ocean. And he said, Brian was floored with that. He said, Sid, that's fabulous, but I'm not going to come in 3 months. Let's do it a year from now, February of '64. And if we can't get Capitol Records to release our records in America and have a chart, a single on the sales chart, top 20, then the deal is off. And Sid said, okay. So now they make a deal. Frank, there's no contract. There's no nothing. It's just like 2 guys on the corner putting some deal together. This was all verbal. Sid said, El, I didn't have any money. So I go to 47th Street, a buddy of mine, Abe Margulies, who just lost $85,000 with me on my shows in New Jersey. I lost a lot of money for him. This is early 60s. And I said, Abe, I got another hunch, but I'd like you to come in as a partner. And Abe said, well, Sid, what's the name of this band? And he said, they call themselves the Beatles. And he said, you want me to invest in money that's named after insects? Are you crazy? Are you serious? And he said, Sid, look, all I care about is that you're up on your feet. You're making a living. You're my buddy. He said, don't worry about it. If you need $6,500 for Brian, you got it from me. And he said, I told Abe, I need $500 right away to put a deposit on Carnegie Hall. So he said, he writes a check, he tosses at me, and he said, Sid, leave me alone. I got meetings. I got to earn a living. Now, Sid goes down to Carnegie Hall to wrap up the February 12th date, which was Lincoln's birthday, because the kids would be off. And he goes down to Carnegie to give him a $500 deposit. And they say, Mr. Bernstein, what are the Beatles? We have a no rock and roll policy. We don't allow rock and roll bands into Carnegie Hall. What did they do? And he said, I told him they are a British quartet. And that's how he signs the agreement for Carnegie and locks in Carnegie Hall. And he said, in the beginning of January, I put the tickets out on sale. I took a big ad in the Sunday Times. And at the time, I decided if I'm going in with the Beatles, I want to do a few more shows. So I called old friend Tony Bennett and said, Tony, would you let me present you for a second time at Carnegie? And Tony says, well, Sid, if you can get me a good band, I'll go in there with you. And he said, I called him back 20 minutes later and said, Tony, will Count Basie do? And he said, Tony flipped. It was the first time he went in with Count Basie. And then he got a lady named Shirley Bassey, who had the hit record Goldfinger.
Absolutely, with the James Bond film.
Right. And he said, then I ran in the Sunday Times a big ad. I called it the Bees ad. Bernstein presents the Beatles, Bassey, Bennett, and Basie. And he said, a few days later, we put them on sale. He said, I go down there the night after the first day they were on sale, and it was a mess on 57th Street and 7th Avenue. There were coffee cups, there were cigarette wrappers, there were chewing gum wrappers. It was a pig pen. He said, I walked over to Napotasnik at the box office at Carnegie, said, what happened here last night? The place is filthy. And he said, Mr. Bernstein, There were kids sleeping out all night in sleeping bags. Their parents were running coffee cups to them and hot chocolate to them because it's cold, it's January. And we sold out the 2 shows in 28 minutes, and they set a record. And at that point, the Beatles were on the way to
that
America.
is wild. If you're just tuning in, I'm Frank Morano. This is The Other Side of Midnight, joined in studio by Fred Rubino and Elliot Gordon. And Fred, I saw the look of disbelief on your face, lest you think that Elliot is exaggerating about Sid Bernstein's role in bringing the Beatles to America. Here's Paul McCartney saying exactly that.
We have the guy in the audience tonight who brought the Beatles to America, Sid Bernstein.
That was in 2010, Fred, so he sure showed you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I played the Carnegie Deli a couple of times.
Given your history of being full of baloney, that is the least surprising thing that I've heard this hour.
I was going to tell you, could you please repeat what you just said?
All right.
I missed some of it.
Well, you mentioned that.
I do another show at 6 a.m.
You mentioned that February 12th incident. Was that actually Lincoln's birthday? Or was that Lincoln's birthday observed?
Yes, Lincoln's birthday. That was, I think it was a Wednesday. That was not a Monday holiday. And Sid said, I needed a day when the kids were off from school. And we took that February 12th, actually Lincoln's birthday. And then what happened is the Sullivan situation developed shortly afterwards. I've got a buddy, Vince Calandra, who worked for Ed for 14 years. And he tells me, he said he was with Ed on a plane in Heathrow Airport. And Ed saw a tremendous crowd going over to another plane. He said, what's that all about? And they said, well, they've got a popular rock band called the Beatles, and the kids love them. And at that point, Ed got in touch with Brian Epstein, and Brian told him, we're coming into New York for February 12th for Sid Bernstein. And Ed knew Sid because he would book a lot of acts on his program. And that's when he booked them for that February 9th Sunday. And on that Sunday, they filmed an extra piece afterwards, which was going to air 2 weeks later. And then they decided to go with Sullivan to Florida, where he was doing a remote. So they never came for Sullivan. They came for Sid, and then the Sullivan show got wrapped around it. But I know people say, hey, they came for Ed Sullivan. They didn't. They came for Sid Bernstein.
Well, now you know the rest of the story. Fred, what about it? Do you think it was better when we celebrated Lincoln's birthday on the actual day, or is it better now that it's the Monday after the weekend?
I think his day. Give the guy his day.
Right, exactly.
You know, they don't do that with anybody else.
Well, no, now they do it with everybody else. It's the Monday
But not
after
like
the week.
you. Like your wife doesn't say, it's September 4th, but we're going to do it December 31st. You know,
well, that's another thing. My son was born on Thanksgiving, and he was also born on November 25th. I'm of the belief that his birthday is Thanksgiving.
That's it.
My wife says it's November 25th. So how do you deal with
You do whatever your wife tells you to
Exactly.
do. That's how
the
you
short
get
answer
through
to this.
Thanksgiving.
All right, we're going to play, folks, a little bit of another comic named Fred in a moment, Freddie Roman. But if you're enjoying strolling down memory lane with Elliot Gordon and I, if you're in the New York area or planning to be in the New York area, you will have the opportunity to do just that in January. Elliot, tell us quickly, what are we doing in January, you and I?
January 13th, we are going to be doing an off-Broadway presentation in the Theater District. And Frank, for the folks that'll come down, we got Frank's open mic. So you could do, well, a little clip of your radio show, talking with your audience, discussing things in a town hall format. And then at that point, I'll be presenting classic comedians, guys I work with and represented, personal anecdotes of myself and Jackie Mason and Buddy Hackett and Freddie Roman and Malzy Lawrence. And I'm claiming, and I'm putting a challenge out there to those young comics, that these guys are funnier on video with their clean comedy than you guys are with your off-color routine. So I'm giving you the ice bucket challenge. So they're going to get personal anecdotes of me and those guys who I represented in their later years and video clips of their funniest and greatest performances. If you want to have a good time with Frank, be there. If you want to laugh and what Pat Cooper used to call the uproarious belly laugh, well, I'm going to deliver with my video clips and personal anecdotes.
We're going to play one in a moment, but Elliot, tell people how they can get tickets.
Very simple. Just Google Frank Morano, Elliot Gordon, and it'll come up on your screen, Eventbrite, and it is a legitimate off-Broadway theater on West 45th Street because, Frank, I've got such a good response from what we are doing. They say, hey, go right to off-Broadway because you know what the next step is. Guys, come down. You'll have a ball. And
Fred, if you're thinking of coming, it's also the anniversary of the Pope recognizing the Knights Templar. So we're going to do something special for that as well.
A couple of beheadings, some burnings.
Exactly.
But, compared to Buddy Hackett, everyone's a younger comic.
Exactly. Hey, we're going to let folks hear a little bit of Freddie Roman talking about Viagra, or showing you how active Freddie Roman is well into the 90s. Set this up for us, Elliot.
Sure. Fred, well, first of all, Fred, not only my client, was my sponsor to go into the New York Friars Club, but Fred was a very funny man. He earned his stripes in what had been the Catskill Mountains, but became really a great comic and actually went to Broadway for a year himself with Dick Capri, Marilyn Michaels, and Malzy Lawrence. And this is a clip of Fred doing a couple of minutes of old school comedy, just simply being funny.
I always start with a story, and I love stories. This is my favorite. Couple married 47 years. The lady becomes ill, she passes away. Funeral service is over. The pallbearers lift up the coffin, start to walk out. The coffin hits the wall. From inside the coffin you hear, "Oh my God, a miracle, the lady lived." She lived another 3 years, got sick again, died again. Another funeral. Service is over, the pallbearers lift up the coffin, start to walk out. The husband yells, "Watch out for the wall." As I get a little bit older, I am getting crankier. Things are bothering me now that never bothered me before. I cannot stand being at home, having the phone ring, and they try to sell me something over the phone. Telemarketing, you hate it too, right? It's horrible. Well, I have two homes. I live in New Jersey, and I live in the state of Florida in the winter. And telemarketing in New Jersey is different than Florida. In Jersey, they try to sell me an insurance policy, a credit card. Not in Florida. I was at my home last winter, the phone rang. A lady said, "Mr. Roman, do you have your burial arrangements yet?" I said, "What?" She said, "Do you have your burial?" I said, "Yes, I do, thank you." She said, "Don't hang up. Are you going to be buried in the South or the North?" I said, "I'm going to be buried in the North." She said, "Wonderful. Do you have your travel arrangements yet?" I said, "Yes, my wife likes to drive. She wants to stop at the outlets in North Carolina." It's weird. You know what else is getting me crazy now? Every 2 minutes on television for the last 5 years, you see a brand new drug commercial. There are new pharmaceutical products all over the world, Every 2 minutes they advertise them on television. And here's what bothers me. The first 50 seconds of that commercial, they extol the virtues of that drug. The last 10 seconds, you get a list of side effects that's worse than any disease I might have.
The Other Side of Midnight.
At Sephora, we've got what you want because you're obsessed with your skin, and we're obsessed with what it needs. Sephora has the best products to help you get beautiful, glowing, radiant skin. With an extensive, inclusive range of results-driven formulas and in-store beauty advisors to help you find exactly which are right for you, the best skincare is only at Sephora. Sephora, for all your skincare.
Subtle results, still you, but with fewer lines. Botox Cosmetic, out of botulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
Nurses, are you tired of spending weeks or even months finding the perfect job that matches your specialty with your ideal shift and salary? LinkedIn has improved your job search experience. Search by specialty, the shift you want to work, and the salary you want to make. Go to linkedin.com/nurses and begin searching today. That's linkedin.com/nurses.
Note, side effects may include less time finding the perfect job, working a shift that you love with a salary that can take you to St. Thomas, Jamaica, and continuous smiling because of how simple this process was.
This episode is brought to you by Factor. Optimize your nutrition this year with Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal service. Factor's fresh, never-frozen meals are dietitian approved, ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from 40 weekly options across 8 dietary preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Eat smarter at factormeals.com/listen50 and use code listen50 for 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Factormeals.com/listen50. Code listen50. Terms and conditions apply.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
Change, change, change. 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 Change, change of food.
Aretha Franklin, Chain of Fools. This song came out today in 1968, I believe. Someone who you will never call a fool is Fred Rubino, who is proudly sporting his Other Side of Midnight t-shirt. How you holding up there, Fred?
Very well. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being had. You can learn more about Fred at fredrubino.com. Let me ask you about this, Fred. A woman was rescued after falling into a manhole and spending the night trapped inside. This was last Wednesday. Firefighters rescued this woman who was trapped in a manhole in San Bernardino, California. This is a nightmare for a lot of people. What was your take on this?
I tell you what, a manhole is a very nasty place. To spend the night, it's dark, there's rats, there's water bugs. She's going to have nightmares like nobody else. But I'm shocked that California still calls it a manhole.
You know, what a great point. It should be a person hole.
A gender neutral hole.
Exactly.
Do you have a gender neutral hole near you, Frank?
Hey, I mentioned this yesterday, but I'm eager to get your opinion on it. There was this ancient amulet that was recently discovered showing a biblical king, King Solomon, spearing the devil, and it was recently unearthed. It's one of these books that never quite made the Bible. It's kind of the Bible, the director's cut, and yet it was depicted in an amulet, which they just found in Turkey. Kudos to the archaeologists in Turkey.
I was shocked that the biblical king was Solomon, because I thought it would be Sid Rosenberg. Because if you listen to morning radio, that's the king of the Jews.
I was with Sid last night. I'll tell you,
did he spear the devil?
Not in the authorized version of the Bible, only in the unauthorized version. You know what I did want to ask you? Do you patronize fast food?
I do.
Well, do you like McDonald's like President Trump does?
I do, but I got sick. Remember the onion thing?
Oh, what? No, I don't, actually.
There was like an E. coli breakout with quarter pounders.
Oh, you were a victim of that?
And I was sick for 3 days, deathly sick.
Really?
I mean, my ass was a jet engine for 3 days.
How long ago was this?
This was about a month ago.
And you haven't gone back since?
I haven't, but I've done other fast food.
Yeah,
just
gotcha.
that I'm traumatized by McDonald's.
You're scared straight.
I'm scared. My manhole story is really expanding right now.
The McRib is coming back to McDonald's.
I love the McRib.
What is the McRib?
McRib is that they take pork, they blend it finely, and they mold it into something that looks like a rack of ribs. But it's just like maybe bologna. And then they put sauce on it, on a roll. It's magnificent. My twist on it is I take a small fries and put it on top of that. You see what I'm saying?
The Fred Rubino twist on the McRib.
I worship at the altar of the McRib.
So it's just a pork sandwich?
Yes.
Okay.
Very poor.
But why is
Spam is a cut above that.
But why do people make such a big deal about it? Why is it in the news that I'm reading the news?
It's big news.
The former president of Brazil is indicted. Israel gets sanctioned by the International Criminal Court, and then the McRib is coming back.
The McRib is definitely big news. It's the only news I want to hear sometimes is that and sometimes I'll eat two just to spike the ball.
Well, how much is a McRib these days?
McRib was last time it was $6 and change.
Okay.
Which is very reasonable.
Yeah. Well, how filling is a McRib?
I could tell you it's bigger than a Big Mac, a quarter pounder.
You kidding? Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so
it's like a mini hero.
Okay. All right. Well, that's big for $6.
Fantastic.
All right. Lastly, Fred, NBA superstar LeBron James says he is leaving social media due to negative takes. Can I say I totally feel him on this? There's a lot of negativity out there on social media.
The Frank Morano haters, LeBron wouldn't last 1 second if he was on this show. Because they have ripped me apart many times.
I don't think there's a person that's been on the show, including me, that has gotten a universally positive review. If people don't know what we're talking about, go on Facebook and just search Morano Radio Fans and Haters. A whole world opens up, and you will be swallowed by a 70% negative view of everything that we've ever done on this show.
But it starts pretty nice sometimes.
Right.
They're like, Fred, I love what you were doing. Oh, that was funny that you said. And then the most horrific comments. And I was like, is my family on this? It's so personal.
All right. Fred, you're welcome to stick around if you want. I'm going to do denunciations and talk movies with Debbie Schlussel, but if you have nowhere to go, you're welcome to stick around.
I love denunciation.
So you're going to stick around?
Yes.
Okay, great. Fred Rubino sticking around. If you have comments, feel free. 646-720-0635. Otherwise, the rest of you, keep asking questions.